short, the natural environment can be considered close to equilibrium, and therefore when we intervene, we usually perturb this equilibrium, and there might be consequences on the ecosystems, on the overall system, on the overall natural system. And therefore, our next target, besides protecting ourselves, besides exploiting natural resources, is to make sure that what we do is sustainable. And sustainability is defined as in terms of not perturbing the environment above a certain level. And this is the reason why in recent times it became increasingly important, while expanding human settlements, while trying to minimize the environmental risk, it became extremely important to also reach the target of preserving the environment and making our intervention sustainable. What is the problem? The problem is that sometimes these solutions are also called gray or soft solution or green solutions. Sometimes these solutions are less durable and less effective. For obvious reasons, because in order to minimize the impact on the environment, these solutions are often less resolutive, less invasive, less efficient. So this is the main criticism that is moved against nature-based solutions. They are not effective. Indeed, I think that they are a very good idea, but it doesn't exist a fixed recipe. I mean, we cannot say that nature-based solution allows the solution of every problem. We can certainly say that in some situations, which we need to identify, for solving particular types of problems, they are an interesting opportunity. And usually, the correct solution is the integration of nature-based and hard or heavy solutions. Usually we make a difference. The opposite of nature-based solution is hard solutions, structural interventions. This is the opposite. So when we build a structure, we don't speak about nature-based solutions. Usually we may try to minimize the impact of the structure by using nature-based solutions, but the structure is another story. So it is extremely important that as engineers we try to understand what are the benefits that can be gained to nature-based solutions and what is the optimal solution, which is often based on the integration between structural intervention and nature-based solutions. Okay, let's discuss about the nature-based solutions for coastal protection. As opposed to breakwaters, breakwaters are not a nature-based solution. Even if you use wood as a natural material, they are structural. It's a structural intervention. Groins, it's again a structural intervention. Even if you build groins that are very permeable, woody structures, and not invasive structures, sometimes groins, I think, may be a good compromise. Breakwaters, realized through artificial beaches, are a nature-based solution. If you put there sand or cobbles and you create an artificial beach, this is a nature-based solution. Of course, the distinction between structural and nature-based sometimes becomes not very, there is an overlap, not very fixed, not very well determined. Okay, so first of all, let me start with the classification of nature-based solution that was recently proposed. This is from Wikipedia. And there are, on the abscissa there is level and type of engineering of biodiversity ecosystem. So basically, let's look at the three types of nature-based solutions. So they are classified into three types. And type 1 is better use of natural protected ecosystem. Type 2 is nature-based solution for sustainability and multifunctionality of managed ecosystems. Type 3 is design and management of new ecosystems. So basically here you don't make anything new. This is the lowest level. You just make a better use of what is already there. Here you apply solution for managing ecosystems. And there in type 3 you design new ecosystems. And of course, as you move, you increase the type of engineering, let's say. Engineering doesn't mean structure in this case, it means design of solutions. In this case, there is limited design because you take what's there and you make it better used. Here you have to design the management, and here you have to design new ecosystems. And you have an increase, as you go towards right, of the delivery of key services, because of course, if you design a new ecosystem, you have an increased delivery of key services. And here we have the number of services and stakeholder groups. Number of stakeholders is something that I don't fully understand in this picture. Of course, what it means is that if you go here, you have a higher number of stakeholders group because basically here you use something that is already there and therefore means encouraging a better use of something that is already there, and therefore it is immediately available. This is what I understand. This axis is something that can be, anyway, the interpretation, I think it's questionable. But let's focus on, give some examples, sorry. Greening buildings, artificial ecosystems, it's clearly a type 3. So the green roofs, the green walls, it's essentially creation of new ecosystem is something that doesn't exist. Greening cities is in between better management and new ecosystems. And then you have innovative planning of agricultural landscape. So you basically change the management of agriculture. Here another example is that you protect some areas and you try to preserve the environment, natural reserves, etc. This is still a classification that is very general. Let's move to our interventions. Cobble berms. The purpose here is to protect the berm. Remember, the berm is the place where, in the beach, the wave run-up finishes. So the berm is placed at the max extension of the wave run-up. In this swash zone where you have the run-up, the wave run-up, you have a continuous movement of sediments. At the end of the run-up, you have deposition, and therefore you have the berm, which is a flat area, which is located right where you see that it finishes the wet sand. And then there is the berm that is sufficiently extended up to the dune. In the rear of the berm, you have the dune, which is higher than the berm, but it's a further protection of the land. The berm is typically formed in mild conditions. In our climate, during summer. During winter, in more energetic conditions, the berm is washed away. And the dune survives, but the berm is washed away because wave run-up increases during winter and washes away the berm. It is essential to preserve the berm if we want also to preserve the dune and its functioning in order to protect the land. And a way to protect the berm is to put cobbles over it. And this is one first solution. So there is no sand, but the sand is beneath the cobbles, and below the cobbles. And of course, this is an artificial intervention. You may say that it's an artificial intervention, but still, it is something that uses natural material, and it's an intervention that resembles the natural appearance of the berm, and therefore it's considered a green solution, a nature-based solution. Keep in mind that there is a difference between revetments. Revetments are protections of the berm throughout structures, like sometimes we put boulders or tetrapods over the berm, and this is something that is very different by, even if one may say it's similar, but it's different with respect to using cobbles. If you use boulders, the effect is different than using cobbles. Why it's different? First of all, because the cobble berm is a dynamic environment. It's moving, the cobbles are moving, are displaced by waves, and therefore, being the environment dynamic, you also see some sand, it looks more natural. But still, if you put cobbles there, it is an efficient protection of the berm. Okay.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Does the cobbles resist against wave washing in winter season? Like,
it gives a stronger attitude to the berm to resist. Of course, it depends on the size of the cobbles. If you put boulders, it is the extreme of the upper extreme of the cobble berm. It's no more a nature-based solution, and they resist. If you put a cobble berm, you get a higher resistance, and therefore, let's say that in an ordinary situation, it's fine. It's not protected against very extreme events, and you have to understand what is the lifetime of your intervention and etc. Keep in mind that it's an intervention that can be renewed, and usually when we use cobble berms, we plan some new intervention after 10 years. And it depends on the retro period of the wave height that you use to estimate the size of the cobbles. It's an in-between solution. I think that what is written here is quite descriptive, and the only thing that I think is interesting to see, and which partially replies to your question, is that there are empirical relationships to determine the size, the optimal size of the cobbles. What is recommended is to use material that has a good appearance, a good looking. Good looking means that it's similar to the natural material of the sand in terms of color, and not in terms of size, but maybe that if you look around, you see beaches nearby that have a material of increased size, because they may be exposed to a different wave regime, and therefore if you take the material from nearby beaches, it's much better than bringing the material from far away. And another thing that you have to consider is that the cobble berm has an impact on tourism, of course, and therefore it has to be carefully considered the use of this kind of protection. Keep in mind that in some beaches, this protection is used only during winter. So if during summer you have typically calm condition and a strong use by tourists, you may remove it, and during winter, when you instead want to protect the berm, you can put the cobble berm during the winter there. And also keep in mind that cobbles have this nice feature that during summer they can disappear below the sun. Because during summer you have deposition, and therefore you have the sun over the cobbles, and the cobbles are covered. And then during the winter, of course, you have increased erosion, and sand is eroded, but when erosion gets to the cobbles, it's stopped, so it's still protective. And all of these dynamics behavior need to be studied carefully. And here you can see some strengths and weaknesses, this contribution from which I took these notes is available for download, but basically you see that there are clear advantages, very simple placement and construction, and they appear as natural environment. They are normally not very expensive, they are flexible and they attack waves, and of course they are more favorable to tourism, and they may become varied by sand during summer. This is the strength and the weaknesses. Of course, one of the weaknesses is durability, and therefore they provide less protection with respect to revetment of sea walls, of course. Revetment is placing boulders or tetrapods fixed structure to protect the berm. And also they require maintenance, as I already said. And keep in mind, yeah, this is interesting. Cobbles may be thrown landward by waves. And this is something that we usually not consider, but it's indeed, it may be a risk, especially if we talk about the beaches on the ocean, where you may have a very energetic environment. And recreational opportunities which are reduced. Artificial dunes. This is another very effective way of protecting the land. The dune is extremely important because it protects the land from the spray, it protects the lands from flooding and from wind. And therefore, where the dune has been removed, artificially removed or removed by strong erosion, then it may be a good solution to build an artificial dune. Basically, we bring them sandbags, and the bags may be containers made by geotextile. And therefore, we build a structure that is similar to a dune. And after a while, the geotextile they are flexible, and they take the shape of a natural dune. Of course, a lot of sand is needed to build it. So this is one of the main problems, that you may need significant volumes of sand. But still, this is an interesting solution because it looks natural, and it is relatively inexpensive with respect to infrastructures, provided sand is readily available. And I think that for most of this text you can read it quite easily. And you have to keep in mind that an important design variable is with the height of the dune, and overtopping is a significant reason of concern. It's not like blackwater. A dune, by definition, shouldn't be overtopped unless a very extreme event occurs. And overtopping of dunes means flooding on the land side. Strength and weaknesses. So basically, sorry, I think there are some strengths. No, it's already described above. So, if you use gel containers, of course, it's a strength because they look natural and they are flexible. On the other hand, they can break. And when they break, of course, the sand may be displaced in an unwanted way. And also they can be vandalized. The artificial dune, the experience suggests that can be vandalized. And durability of the gel containers and also the height. So basically, one way of reaching significant height is trying to build a structure made by several different elements, more than 5 feet for a gel container. It's discouraged. Let me show you this. It has nice pictures, so let me see if I can download it. This is a place if I remember, in California. I don't remember. No, in Oregon, where they tried to use a combination of cobble berm and artificial dune. Let me see. They made a lot of surveys for determining what is the appearance of beaches nearby. And here it is the situation before the intervention. You see that there is a lot of erosion. And then, I'm sorry that the pictures are not clear because it is still uploading the PDF. Here they are constructing the common berm. Anyway, if it is slow. And here they are constructing the artificial dune. So have a look at the pictures. What is interesting is
first, you can find, I guess, some pictures of this document. If you go back, there is the second link on Google. No, on Google.
Sorry, on Google, you mean?
If you Google the name of this document, you can find.
Okay.
Some pictures of this document.
So if I Google the title, you mean?
Yeah.
Let me see. And then images.
The second one, not the second link on the first page. Yeah, that one. There is some pictures of this.
But this is still not. I don't think it is this one. Maybe it is this.
It's a PDF file.
But I think that, let me see, images. No. Anyway, I think you can look at it. It's a nice example, and we don't have much time now. It's a nice example of artificial dune plus common berm. Beach nourishment, also called beach replenishment, we already discussed it. It's basically based on bringing sand on, also through bypassing maybe, bringing sand to the beach. Quite often we try to use sediment of increased size, but sand of increased size, increased diameter with respect to the natural material. But we have to be careful because we shouldn't exaggerate in that because it has been observed that there is an impact on the visual appearance and also there is an impact on the beach dynamic and morphodynamics. If indeed we want to try to reconstruct the original environment, it's meaning that we want to give to the sand an appearance that is very close to the original one, we need to use a material that is very similar. And also, it is noted here. It is noted in the region, and there is a description. And again, strength and weaknesses, you can read there. Of course, you have an increased protection, so reduced erosion, and it may favor the development of an ecosystem and the natural development of beach that is close to the original situation and looks very natural. And of course, it reduces the cost risk. The disadvantages is that beach nourishment requires usually a continuous maintenance, repetition of the intervention. Let me say we can use beach replenishment or nourishment. One is American English and the other one is British English. I don't remember which one of the two. I think I already mentioned to you this. And also keep in mind that it's a protection that is not very strong, so it can be eroded during an extreme event. And it has a possible impact on the regional sediment transport, especially onshore sediment transport. And it can require large volumes of sand, like dune, and there might be some impact, even if it is an environmentally friendly option, and it can lead to steeper beach profile. Now, let's talk about beach scraping. This is interesting because it is widely used, and it is widely used especially in our beaches here. If you go on the Adriatic Sea during the winter, you see a completely different configuration of the beach with respect to summer. And in particular, you see that there is no berm during winter, but there is a dune. While during summer, usually you don't see the dune unless you go in places that are not widely structured. I mean, if you go to places where they look natural, like indeed close to Ravenna, you can see during summer Berman Dune, where there is a lot of touristic use, a lot of tourists. Usually you don't see the dune because it has been removed. It has been removed because people wanted to make a full use of the beach. The dune is something that cannot be easily used because there is vegetation, because it's steep and it's difficult to maintain. Keep in mind that in our beaches people every night passes with a machine in order to make it very fine. And therefore the dune is difficult to maintain. So typically when there is a lot of tourism, they remove the dune and you can still see the berm. But during winter, if you go there, you see an artificial dune and you don't see the berm anymore. Well, the reason is that they artificially scrape the beach, meaning that they take the berm back and build an artificial dune during winter. For obvious reasons, because otherwise the berm would be eroded by the more energetic environment, and sand could be washed away. So they bring the sand from the berm to the land side, and the same, by bringing the sand to the land side, they construct a dune which protects also the land from wind, from spray, from whatever. And this is beach scraping. And it's, as I said, it's a very smart solution, which is relatively inexpensive, and offers a very good protection and reduces, of course, the amount of erosion. Still, it has some impacts because it has an influence on the regional sediment transport. So let's see what are the strengths and weaknesses. So the strengths were basically already summarized. You have a wide, you save sand, basically. So saving sand, you have a wide extension of the beach, and reduce the aesthetic impact, but let's look at the weaknesses. Surface only as a temporary solution, that's fine, and there is an interruption of sediment supply, which could result in downdrift erosion, of course. If you remove the sand and you avoid erosion, therefore, downdrift you may have an increased erosion. So this has to be carefully evaluated. And is least effective in front of seawalls. Okay, that's fine. Of course, you need some space to bring the sand. If you don't have space, if you have a seawall, you can bring the sand against the seawall, but then if an energetic wave comes, it is eroded anyway. And you may have an increased erosion offshore, and above all, destruction of habitat. Keep in mind that sand looks like dead material. It's not. If you leave the sand alone, you can see that sand rapidly becomes the home for a very living ecosystem. And of course, if you continuously move it, if you continuously work it, you destruct the natural habitat, which is important. And it's interesting to see the difference between the sand that is worked for tourism and the beaches that are left to, let's say, that are not maintained. You see a huge difference. Of course, they look maybe not so nice, they're not maintained ones, but if you look at the details, you see that there are indeed, they have indeed a greater value in terms of environment. Okay, vegetation recovery. This is something that is extremely interesting. It's an intervention that, sometimes conflicts with the opportunity of using the beach for tourism. Vegetation recovery basically tends to re-establish the natural environment. What happens in the natural situation? We don't have any vegetation on the beach because, of course, for the presence of salt water. But over the dune, you start having some brushes, some very preliminary vegetation. And this is why, over the dune, you have a relatively undisturbed environment, and what is more important, given that the dune is higher, it's capable of collecting some fresh water, which doesn't get mixed with the salt water. And therefore, the dune may provide fresh water for several months during the year to vegetation. And typically, the vegetation with very superficial roots grow there, and they can profit from the fresh water that is rainwater that is stored in the dune. And the vegetation indeed is very helpful because it stabilizes the dune, it traps the sand that is transported by wind, therefore contributing to increasing even more the height of the dune. And it's useful because it protects also from spray, and therefore favors the growth of vegetation, more developed vegetation on the land side. Vegetation recovery, on the other hand, is extremely complicated because, this is an environment, an ecosystem that is very delicate. The dune is very delicate. There must be on the dune a very engineered compromise between vegetation, saltwater dynamics, so groundwater dynamics, and freshwater dynamics. This is something that is usually reached in long time scales because it requires a continuous interaction between meteorology, the weather, the dynamics of the ocean, and the dynamics of vegetation. So trying to rebuild it in a short time scale is not easy. And here there are some pictures of interventions where it is shown that you need to protect the young vegetation against wind. You need to protect, in some cases, the young vegetation from spray. And you see here the evolution. This is the start of this intervention, and then you have this kind of grass, which is more developed. And it's extremely important to try to mimic the natural evolution of vegetation. So you start with very basic grass on the seaside, and then as you climb up over the dune, you may use a more prominent vegetation, a more elaborated vegetation, trying to mimic the natural situation. And there is a lot of literature for these solutions. Okay, I would say that this is just enough to provide you with an overview of these solutions, which are extremely important today, and especially in the face of climate change, sea level rise, there is an increasing interest in these solutions, which I think require some investigation. And of course, they are not the solution to any problem, but as I said, the integration, if they are integrated with structures, interesting options can emerge. In order to, I would like, we have 10 minutes, I would like